Imagine a place so hostile that the moment you arrive, you have less than 2 hours to live. The heat melts lead. The air is so heavy it would crush a submarine like an empty can. And it rains pure acid. That place is real. It's the planet right next door. One country sent more than a dozen machines down into that hell. Every single one of them died. And then, 50 years ago, they just stopped going. By the end of this, you'll know exactly what's waiting down there. You'll see the only photographs ever taken on its surface, and you'll find out the heartbreaking, almost stupid reason the greatest explorers in history never came back. Stay with me, because this planet does not lose gracefully. The first machine to reach its atmosphere was crushed like a soda can before it ever touched the ground. The next ones were cooked alive while they were still falling. One slammed down so hard its parachute ripped and it flipped completely upside down. And somehow, that one survived. These machines did things nobody believed were possible. One recorded the first sound ever heard on another world. One sent home the first photograph from the surface of another planet. But one of them, after crossing tens of millions of kilometers, after surviving the landing, failed in the single most ridiculous way in the history of space exploration. I'll show you exactly how. Keep it in the back of your mind. So how did one country end up obsessed with the deadliest planet in the solar system? Go back to the 1960s. America was pouring everything into reaching the moon. The Soviets wanted something bigger, something that sounded insane. If America could walk on the moon, Russia would land on hell itself. That hell had a name: Venus. From far away, Venus looked harmless, almost exactly Earth's size, almost the same distance from the Sun, our twin. But Venus hides its face. It's wrapped head to toe in thick, pale cloud. And back then, not one telescope and not one scientist had ever seen what was underneath. Some dreamed of warm oceans, some even imagined life. It was a sealed box, and the Soviets decided they'd be the ones to crack it open. They named the program Venera. The first one, in 1961, never even made it out of Earth's orbit. So they hid it, announced it as a heavy satellite, and let the failure vanish. Then Venera-1 became the first machine ever aimed at another planet. 7 days in, it went dead silent. It's still out there right now, drifting around the sun, blind and mute. And behind it came a whole graveyard of failures so total they were never even given names: the ghost missions. Venus was swallowing them one by one, so they built heavier. Venera-3 became the first object humans ever crashed into another planet, but it died on the way down and hit in silence. Venera-4 finally spoke. It tasted the air, and the air was almost pure carbon dioxide. The Soviets celebrated. They announced it had landed. It hadn't. As it sank, the pressure closed in and crushed it flat, a fist around a can. The dream of warm oceans died right there. So let's be honest about what they were fighting. The surface of Venus sits at about 465 degrees Celsius, twice as hot as your oven turned all the way up. The pressure is around 90 times what's pressing on you right now. Picture sinking almost a kilometer underwater, that weight on every surface all the time. And those soft pale clouds? They're not water, they're sulfuric acid. The Soviets weren't building spacecraft anymore. They were building things that could die slowly instead of instantly, so they built a tank. Venera-7 was so heavily armored they ripped out most of the science just to keep it alive. Its only job was to survive. On the way down, the parachute tore. It hit hard and tipped onto its side, antenna buried in the dirt. By every rule, it was dead. But the engineers refused to quit. They clawed through the static and found it, a faint, broken signal still leaking out. For 23 minutes, a wrecked machine lying on its side on another world kept talking to Earth. The first time anything we ever built landed on another planet and lived long enough to tell us about it. Then they got bolder. Venera-8 landed in daylight on purpose, just to answer one almost childlike question. Under all those clouds, can you actually see anything? The answer was yes, a dim, endless, overcast glow. And as the probes fell, their radio signals kept shifting, the way a siren bends as it races past you. From that tiny shift, the scientists realized something chilling. High above the surface, winds were tearing around the planet faster than any storm Earth has ever produced.
By the mid-1970s, they were ready for the one thing the whole world wanted. Not data, a picture. In 1975, Venera-9 delivered the first photograph ever taken from the surface of another planet. No ocean, no life. A bleak, rocky plain of sharp, broken stones under a heavy sky. But here's the cruelty that kept happening. Each lander's cameras had protective caps meant to pop off after landing. Again and again, they jammed shut. Venera 11 and 12 survived almost 2 hours down there, sent home a flood of data, and not one single picture. Blind on the most hostile world we'd ever reached. And then came Venera 13, the best of everything they'd learned. It carried a microphone, and on the surface of Venus, it recorded a sound no human had ever heard. Wind and the faint crack of thunder on another planet. It also sent home the first color image, an orange sky over broken brown ground. Now, remember that ridiculous failure I promised you? Here it is. Venera 14 carried an arm built to swing down and strike the soil to test how hard the ground was. The arm swung, and it came down perfectly, right onto the one spot where the camera's own lens cap had just fallen. So instead of measuring the surface of Venus, it very carefully measured the hardness of its own discarded trash. A mission worth a fortune, undone by a scrap the size of your palm. For the final act, they changed everything. Venera 15 and 16 didn't even try to land. They circled Venus for 8 months, firing radar through the clouds to map the ground no camera could ever see. They revealed mountains taller than the Alps and cracks running for thousands of kilometers. America had written the whole program off as a failure, but only the Soviets had touched that surface, heard it, photographed it, and mapped it. Even today, much of Venus carries Russian names. Some people just call it the Soviet planet. So back to our question. They mastered the impossible. Why stop? The last Soviet visitors arrived in 1984. After that, silence. Part of it is history. A few years later, the Soviet Union collapsed, and the dream collapsed with it. But the deeper reason is the planet itself. Every lander died within 2 hours. Venus simply will not let you stay. Russia has been promising a return for over 20 years, a mission called venera-d, and it keeps sliding further into the future. The greatest Venus explorers who ever lived still can't find a way back. Think about that. We've driven rovers across Mars for years. We've sent probes out of the solar system entirely. But the planet closest to us, our so-called twin, still only lets us stay for minutes before it destroys everything we send. Venus is proof that next door, in space, can still be completely out of reach. Next time, the one mystery Venus left behind. If its clouds are made of acid, why doesn't that acid ever rain all the way down to the ground? If you want to keep standing at the edge of the impossible, stick around. We do this every week.